Hi, this is Dr. Hardy, your pediatric obesity expert. Thank you for tuning in. Today I want to talk about healthy eating habits. This will be part one. I'm not sure how many parts will come out of this series, but I will just go with the flow. So the first thing you want to do to get your kids to eat healthy is to, number one, set boundaries, and number two, be consistent. So whatever changes that you make, you have to be consistent. You can't let up. You can't give in to temper tantrums. You just have to keep pushing along. So as long as you're not starving your child, you know they're not starving, they had enough food for growth and development, you are not depriving your child. So I like to give parents permission to do this because a lot of guilt can come on to the parent when they try to make changes. So it's okay to feel a little guilty, but it's also okay to make the changes for your child's long-term health. So consistency and boundaries. So how do we set some boundaries? Number one, when you're going to the grocery store, go alone. Set that boundary that they cannot even step into and ask you to purchase items that you know that they shouldn't have. So once you do that, they are unaware, they're not making the choice, you're taking charge of your family's home health, and you are buying the things from the grocery store. And before you go to the grocery store, you should have an idea already of what you're buying with the intention of changing the family's lifestyle. So not just one person in the house, but the entire family is now taking on this new lifestyle. So that's a really good way to be consistent. Go alone or just have the parents or the adult that is responsible to go every single time without the person who is struggling with lifestyle changes. And a lot of times the parents are struggling too, but as the adult, you can take charge more than a child. So go to that grocery store alone every single time consistently, and therefore you will create that boundary. The next thing is meal times. So you don't want to have your kids, especially with the pandemic and partially going to school virtually and partially going to school at home, they just can probably freely go back and forth to the refrigerator. So we have to set consistent boundaries about how many times they can go into that refrigerator, and their classroom at home needs to be in the room that's not the kitchen for sure, and there needs to be some oversight of what the child is doing and what they're going back and forth when they take breaks. So if you have scheduled meal times, this will help prevent your child from being hungry all the time and just randomly going into the refrigerator to get food. So if you get a schedule out, decide what time they're going to have breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, dinner, snack, they are less likely to feel hungry in between meals, because you probably know when we feel hungry in between a meal, we make really bad choices. I know I do. And you never want to go to the grocery store hungry as well, because you will buy things that you should not buy for your household. So you have to equip yourself before you go. Make sure you eat well, make sure the kids aren't with you, and make sure you have your list beforehand of the things that you are going to buy. And this will help you greatly. Guys, the next thing I like to talk about is meal options. So if you have a child in the home, we need to create an environment for them where they're more likely to make healthier choices. So I always say, if there's apples and potato chips in the home, which one would you pick for a snack? But if they're apple and oranges, they're only healthy options. So you don't have to give as much oversight, but it just depends on the kid. Some kids, you still have to give some oversight, even with only healthy options in the home, because they will just keep grazing all day, even through the healthy snacks, and that's not a healthy thing to do. So you have to know your child, and you have to set up your environment for your child. So if your child's not a grazer, you probably can just leave, different snacks out that are healthy, and they will just eat, when they have a break in between, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, 2 healthy snacks in between. If you have a grazer, some parents actually have a lock on the fridge because those kids, they can't watch them all the time, and they will just be in the pantry back and forth in the fridge. And they do sell little gadgets to lock the fridge and the pantries, or things that it can make a sound if they're open. So it just depends on where you are in the struggle. So you definitely want to have some healthy options, and you may want to get them involved in the options. So before you go to the grocery store, you can tell them, you're about to go and you want some healthy items. Ask them what are some of their favorite healthy foods so you can buy them. Or maybe you can look at recipes together and pick out some healthy recipes so they can get excited when you go to the grocery store and know that you're going to come back and maybe cook some of those meals during the week. So you can get creative there. Sometimes if the child is old enough, they can actually help cook some of the things, and maybe you can even have them read up on certain things so they can understand why something is healthy. Just depends on your child. Some kids really do well when they understand why they're doing something as opposed to just being told to do something. So every child is in a different stage of development. Usually kids who are like between, I would say, 4 and maybe 8 or 9, they don't really understand why they have to eat healthy. There's really nothing you can do or say to really make it click for many of them. They understand, like, okay, mom says it's good for me, but they still desire, like all of us do, but don't really connect the changes to the why. And those kids in that age group do really well with rewards. So, they don't understand what diabetes and high blood pressure is, but they do understand if they eat well, they may get a reward. And I always say the reward should be minimal. It should be nothing extravagant. Sometimes I say something from the dollar store. And we don't want to equate, rewards like food rewards. We don't want that. We don't want to get into this habit or mindset that, like, oh, if I'm good, then I'm going to overdo chocolate cake, or I'm going to get, it just sets them up for a bad pattern with food, and like mental, their psyche with food just starts to shift into this pattern that's unhealthy. And I'll keep it at that, so I won't get too much into the psychology and behavior of eating, but we don't ever want to use food as a reward. All right, so sometimes we get our treat, or some people, don't even like the word treat because it still puts food in this category that almost puts like a barrier, like if I don't do something, then I can't get the treat, and then it's an unhealthy relationship. It leads to an unhealthy relationship with food. And the last thing you can do is get some of their favorite foods together and try to include it during the week's meals or recipes, so the lifestyle changes won't be such a drastic hit on them. So although you may be cooking healthier, you're still able to incorporate some favorites, and even occasionally their junk food favorites or carbs or processed foods. So we don't want to eliminate it altogether. Drastic changes don't really have good outcomes as well. They end up sneaking food or getting food from other relatives or parents. So we don't want to deprive them totally of the foods that they like. I often talk about on my Facebook page and my Grade My Plate series on YouTube about, having different portions of carbs in 1/4 of the plate. So if you look at some of those, you can see how you can still incorporate some of their favorites into the dinner plate. You can even use the healthy plate for breakfast and lunch. So it's a little harder, but you just can get creative. For example, you can have a vegetable on that plate for breakfast. I like sliced tomatoes. Some people even have like a full salad in that 1/4 of the plate. I'm sorry, in that half of the plate, and then in the 1/4 of the plate, they'll have the egg, and the other 1/4, they'll have like bacon or sausage. So if you follow that template, it shouldn't be too drastic of a change for your child. They should still be able to adapt, and their body may not crave the carbs as much. So I should warn you, once you do these changes, they may crave sugar, they may crave carbs, they may get a little bit more irritable. That's all normal, usually passes in a couple of weeks, but if they get some carbs, and healthy carbs like from vegetables, they'll still get, their body will still, interpret what they're getting as a carb, even though it's not from Cheetos per se. So I spoke about behavior modification, rewards. We can go a little bit more into the rewards too. You can do a calendar or create a postcard, a poster board, and put it on the wall in your house and put stickers for different goals. So especially if you have more than one child, there can be some healthy competition there, and whoever walks this many steps today gets a star, and everybody will feed off of each other and have motivation from one another to be healthy. So when you're the only one, or it's just mom and me, doing something, it may not be as motivating, but if the whole family gets involved and there's some healthy competition for some prize, that can help too. So get them involved in the kitchen, age appropriately, of course, and let them see some recipes that they like. Let them make some of their favorite dishes with you. It's a perfect time to bond that way. You can bond over exercise. You can bond over cooking together. And I really recommend carving out some moments like that to bond with the child who is trying to change their lifestyle. This is a major deal. This can be very stressful. They could, be stressed overall because they think they're overweight or they're fat or whatever, names people are calling them. They're getting bullied. They're getting called names and teased. So once they have that space and time with you, you can gather information from them on how they're doing. So it's an emotional, healthy connection. So you can start bringing up like, how was school today? Or, how you feeling about lifestyle changes, and start creating that dialogue during those times, and your child will really start to look forward to it. So I really hope this helped, guys.